Welcome to Silent Stories, where we uncover tales of courage, defiance, and triumph that echo through the ages. Today, we're plunging into the blistering Nevada desert where one woman battles prejudice, doubt, and her own hidden past to claim her place among the elite. If you're hooked on stories that ignite your spirit and challenge the odds, smash that like button, subscribe to Silent Stories, and hit the bell to never miss an episode. Now, buckle up for the journey of Ava Morales, a pilot destined to rewrite the rules of the sky. The Nevada sun-scorched Nellis Air Force Base, its heat a relentless hammer on the 20 new cadets lined up for inspection. Among the broad shoulders and crew cuts stood Ava Morales, 5 feet 6 inches, slender, and the only woman in the Air Force's elite fighter pilot program. Whispers slithered through the ranks, snickers, sidelong glances, eyes that dismissed her before she could speak. "They're letting anyone in now," Cadet Richards muttered, his voice carrying deliberately. "Wonder who she sweet-talked to get here." His mates chuckled, their laughter slicing through the dry desert air like a blade. Ava kept her gaze forward, jaw clenched, her resolve unshaken. As the daughter of Mexican immigrants and the first in her family to wear the uniform, she'd fought uphill battles her entire life. But this was different. The fighter pilot program was the pinnacle of military aviation, a crucible where only the best survived. From day one, they decided she didn't belong. Sergeant Miller paced the line, his weathered face a mask of indifference. He stopped at Ava, eyeing her pristine uniform, regulation bun, and textbook-perfect stance. "Morales," he read from his clipboard, skepticism dripping from his tone. "Top of your class in prelim flight school?" "Yes, Sergeant," Ava replied, her voice steady as steel. He scanned her again, as if searching for a flaw. "Don't get cozy. Prelim's a picnic compared to this. Women wash out here 99 times out of 100. Behind her, a cadet whispered, "Give it a week," sparking more laughs. Ava's cheeks burned, but she'd heard worse. She knew her worth. She clawed her way to this moment, and no snide remark would undo her. In the hangar for orientation, Chief Instructor Captain Hayes stood before a state-of-the-art F-22 simulator, its sleek lines gleaming under fluorescent lights. "This beast sorts pilots from pretenders," he declared, his voice booming. "It mimics G-forces that'll crush you, demands decisions faster than a supercomputer." His eyes locked on Ava, a smirk twitching his lips. "It takes strength, endurance, raw talent. Not everyone's cut out for it." The room's gaze shifted to her, the message as clear as a neon sign. "I need a volunteer," Hayes called. Richard's hand shot up, joined by others. Ava raised hers, arms straight, confident. Hayes ignored her, his eyes sliding past. "Richards, show us what you've got." Richards climbed into the simulator, and Ava watched, dissecting every move. He was sharp, damn good, even, but she spotted flaws, a sluggish response to a simulated engine failure, a sloppy approach pattern that left him vulnerable. He finished to applause, his grin smug. Ava raised her hand again. "Sir, I'd like a go." The hangar fell silent, the air thick with tension. Hayes looked at her as if she'd suggested a tea break mid-mission. "Flying an F-22 takes more than enthusiasm, sweetheart," he sneered, his disdain barely veiled. The cadets erupted in laughter, Richards voiced the loudest. Something hardened in Ava, not just resolve, but a fire that would soon burn through their doubts. Have you ever been underestimated because of who you are? Drop a comment below with your story or what you'd do in Ava's shoes. Would you walk away or fight to prove them wrong? Hit like and subscribe to Silent Stories for more tales of defiance. Week 1 slammed into the cadets like a hurricane. Pre-dawn drills left muscles screaming, sweat pooling under flight suits. Classroom sessions on aerodynamics, meteorology, and combat tactics stretched into the night, the whiteboard a blur of equations and diagrams. For Ava, there was an extra layer of scrutiny, a weight none of the male cadets carried. "Morales, 15 seconds over standard," Sergeant Miller barked as she finished the obstacle course, his tone sharp. When Cadet Thompson stumbled through 17 seconds slower, Miller merely nodded. "Pick it up, Thompson." The double standard was blatant. A slap in the face, but Ava refused to complain. She woke an hour early, ran extra laps around the base's perimeter before dawn, and studied manuals until her eyes burned, memorizing protocols she could recite in her sleep. In the mess hall, Richard smirked to his mates. "Teacher's pet's trying hard, but she'll crash out by month's end." Ava sat alone, nose buried in her flight manual, tuning out their jabs. On day 3, Hayes paired the cadets for simulator training. Ava was teamed with Thompson, who groaned loudly when their names were called. "Sir, can I switch partners?" he asked, not bothering to lower his voice. I'd rather someone who'll last the program. Hayes grinned, enjoying the show. Scared of Morales competition, Thompson? No, sir. Just don't want whiplash when she crashes. The room erupted in laughter, Hayes chuckling as he waved them to the simulator. Ladies first, Thompson mocked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Ava climbed in, anger simmering but hands steady. The screens lit up with a complex combat scenario, enemy jets closing fast, radar pinging threats. Hayes' voice crackled through her headset, standard evasive maneuvers, Morales. Don't choke. What followed stunned the hangar into silence. Ava's hands danced across the controls, executing a flawless split-S maneuver, dropping altitude and reversing direction in one fluid motion. 3 enemy fighters locked onto her tail. She pulled a high-G barrel roll, precise to the inch, a move that would have torn a real jet apart if done with less than perfection. For 7 minutes, she owned the virtual sky, no hesitation, no wasted movement. The score flashed on the screen, 97% combat effectiveness, the highest of the day. The room remained silent as she climbed out, every eye on her. Hayes stared at his clipboard, refusing to meet her gaze. Thompson, your turn, he muttered, his voice tight. The next day brought weapons systems training. Sergeant Miller paced before a disassembled M9 pistol, his voice a growl. Speed and accuracy. In combat, seconds decide if you live. He demonstrated, his weathered hands reassembling the weapon in 30 seconds flat. Richards went first, clocking 42 seconds. Decent. Others ranged from 45 to 60. Morales. Ava stepped forward, all eyes on her slender hands. Someone coughed, minute 30 into their fist. Her fingers flew, metal clicking in a rhythmic cadence. She slapped the magazine home and set the pistol down in 29.7 seconds, faster than Miller. His jaw twitched, a rare crack in his stoic facade. Again, he ordered. Ava repeated the process in 28.5 seconds. Where'd you learn that? He demanded. My uncle, a Marine, taught me at 12, sir, she replied. A flicker of respect crossed Miller's eyes. Gone in a flash, but Ava caught it. A tiny fracture in the wall they'd built around her. That evening, as the cadets showered after a grueling physical training session, Ava overheard Richards and his crew in the men's locker room. She's just good at mechanical tricks, Richards scoffed. Memorizing steps doesn't mean she can handle combat. Another voice chimed in. Heard she's a diversity hire. Pentagon's pushing women for PR points. The words burrowed under Ava's skin like thorns. She dried off quickly, left the showers, and retreated to her bunk. There, she clutched a worn photograph, the only personal item she'd brought to Nellis. A man in desert camouflage smiled back at her, his eyes reflecting the same determination she saw in the mirror each morning. I won't let them win, she whispered to the photo, her voice barely audible. What the cadets didn't know, what no one at Nellis knew, was that Ava carried secrets beneath her skin. Secrets that would soon silence every doubt. Think Hayes and Richards will get their comeuppance? Comment below with what justice you'd love to see these bullies face. Smash that like button and subscribe to Silent Stories for the big reveal. Week 2 turned the pressure to a breaking point. 18-hour days bled into sleepless nights, the relentless pace cracking some cadets. Dark circles framed bloodshot eyes, hands shook from caffeine overload and exhaustion. Ava endured, absorbing every snide remark, every accidental shoulder check in the hallway, every task deliberately rigged to make her falter. She kept moving forward, her focus unshakable. On Monday morning, Captain Hayes stood before the group, his voice cutting through the hangar. Today, we separate real pilots from wannabes. Combat flight formations, one mistake could kill your entire squadron in a real fight. The cadets were split into 4-person teams. Ava was grouped with Richards, Thompson, and Foster, a quiet cadet who'd kept to himself. Perfect, Richards muttered, rolling his eyes. Our team's got a built-in handicap. Hayes pretended not to hear, handing out mission parameters and naming Richards as Alpha Team Leader for a simulated strike against an enemy airfield guarded by SAM sites and MiG interceptors. The simulator pods hummed to life as the cadets climbed in. Through her headset, Ava heard other teams running checklists with military precision. On her team's channel, Richards veered from protocol. We're doing this my way, he announced. Foster, Thompson, you're my wingman. Morales, hang back and try not to crash into anything. Ava's voice was calm but firm. That's not standard formation, sir. The manual states I don't need a woman quoting manuals at me, Richards snapped. I'm squad leader. Follow my orders. Hayes' voice cut through on the command channel. Simulation begins now. The screens lit up with a stunningly realistic combat theater, mountains to the north, an enemy airfield nestled in a valley, radar pinging SAM sites. Richards pushed his simulated F-22 into a steep dive, leading Foster and Thompson directly into the SAM envelope. Ava warned that approach exposes us to all 3 SAM sites simultaneously. Did I ask for your input? Richards barked. Alarms blared across their consoles as enemy missiles locked on. Evasive action. Richards shouted, his voice cracking with panic. Ava watched in disbelief as her teammates scattered, breaking every rule of combat formation. Foster's simulator registered a direct hit almost immediately. Thompson lasted 30 seconds before a missile took him out. Morales, get back in formation. Richards yelled, though there was no formation left to join. Ava broke off, climbing sharply to gain altitude and perspective. Below, chaos unfolded as her team disintegrated. She spotted a narrow corridor to the east, a blind spot in the SAM coverage noted in the mission briefing. What the hell are you doing? Richards demanded as she streaked through the gap. Flying the mission, Ava replied, her voice calm. She deployed countermeasures with textbook precision, confusing the enemy targeting systems. When a MiG appeared on her tail, she executed a Pugachev's Cobra maneuver, pitching up vertically while maintaining forward momentum, forcing the enemy to overshoot. That's impossible, Thompson whispered through the comms. One by one, Ava eliminated the SAM sites, then the MiGs before delivering her payload precisely on the airfield. Mission complete. Solo. When the simulation ended and the pods opened, the hangar was deathly silent. Every cadet, even those from other teams, stared at Ava in disbelief. Hayes' face had turned an alarming shade of purple. Where did you learn that maneuver, cadet? He demanded. The Cobra isn't taught until advanced tactical training. Ava met his gaze steadily. My father was a crop duster in California, sir. I've been flying since I was tall enough to reach the pedals. It wasn't the whole truth, not even close, but it was all they deserved to know. Hayes' eyes narrowed. In my office. Now. In his Spartan office, no photos, no personal touches, just certificates on the wall. Hayes slammed his hand on the desk. I've been flying for 22 years, trained over 300 pilots, and I've never seen a first-week cadet pull off what you just did. Ava stood at attention, eyes forward. So I'm asking you one more time, Morales. Where did you really learn to fly like that? I told you the truth, sir, she said. Bullshit, he snapped. That was military flying. Combat experience. His eyes widened with realization. You've been sandbagging, deliberately underperforming to avoid attention. Ava said nothing. Who are you really, Morales? Because no crop duster's daughter flies like that. For a moment, something dangerous flickered in Ava's eyes, a glimpse of steel beneath the cadet's exterior. Then it was gone. Will that be all, sir? Hayes stared for a long moment. For now. But I'm watching you, Morales. I don't like mysteries in my cadet class. That night, as Ava lay in her bunk, she heard Richards and his friends plotting outside the women's quarters. We need to teach her a lesson, Richards was saying. Show her fancy flying won't save her from washing out. What are you thinking? Thompson asked. Tomorrow's survival training. Accidents happen all the time in the desert. Ava closed her eyes, unworried. Let them try. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that long before Nellis, before she'd even joined the Air Force, Ava Morales had faced far worse than a few resentful cadets. She'd faced death itself and come out on top. Soon, everyone would know exactly who they'd been trying to break. Survival training began at dawn, dropping 20 cadets in pairs across 10 square miles of desert with minimal supplies, tasked with navigating to a rendezvous point by nightfall. Naturally, Hayes paired Ava with Richards. Try to keep up, city girl, Richards said with a smirk as they were dropped at their starting point. Ava checked her compass and map, pointing to a gap between distant ridgelines. We should head east through that low pass. It's longer but keeps us in shade for part of the journey. Richards ignored her, striking north across an exposed salt flat. This way's more direct. Unless you're afraid of a little sunshine. Ava watched him for a moment, then followed, not because he was right, he wasn't, but because mission parameters required teams to stay together. Even idiots didn't deserve to die of heat stroke in training. 3 hours later, Richards was paying for his arrogance. His water bottle was half empty, his face flushed with early signs of heat exhaustion. The direct route offered no shade, the sun a merciless torch. We should conserve water, Ava advised. Small sips. Don't tell me how to survive, Richards snapped, but his voice had lost its edge. Sweat soaked his uniform, his breathing labored. By noon, they reached a rocky outcropping. Richards collapsed in a sliver of shade, gulping the last of his water. "That's it," Ava said flatly. "You're out with 6 hours of hiking left." Richards didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was smaller, almost human. "How are you not even sweating?" It was true. While Richards was drenched, Ava's uniform showed only minimal dampness. Her breathing remained steady, her movements precise. "I grew up in Imperial Valley," she explained. "The desert and I are old friends." Richards squinted up at her, exhaustion dulling his usual contempt. "So you really are Mexican?" "American," Ava corrected. "Born in El Centro. My parents crossed legally 25 years ago." He nodded slowly, then asked, "Why flying? Why not something easier?" The question caught her off guard, the first time he'd treated her as a person, not a punchline. Ava hesitated, then sat on a nearby rock. "My brother joined the Marines when I was 10. He sent letters about flying over Afghanistan, how peaceful the world looked from above, even in a war zone." Her voice softened. "He said in the air nothing mattered but skill. Not where you came from, not what you looked like, just whether you could fly." "What unit was he with?" Richards asked, curiosity overriding his prejudice. Ava's expression closed like a steel trap. "We should keep moving," she said, standing abruptly. "We can reach that ridgeline before the worst heat." As they resumed walking, Richards stumbled, lightheaded from dehydration. Ava caught his arm, steadying him with surprising strength. She offered her half-full water bottle. He stared, pride warring with thirst. "Thirst won." "Thanks," he muttered after a careful sip. They walked in silence for another mile, the shared water forging an uneasy truce. Finally, Richards spoke. "My dad flew F-16s in Desert Storm. Told me my whole life it was in my blood, that I was born to fly fighters." He kicked a rock. "The day I got into the Air Force Academy, he hugged me, first time since I was a kid." Ava said nothing, recognizing the rare vulnerability. "He said the fighter-pilot community was the most elite brotherhood in the military," Richards continued, glancing at her. "Brotherhood, that's how he always phrased it." "And you believed him," Ava stated, not a question. "Everyone believes it. There's never been a female fighter ace, not one, in the history of aerial combat." Ava's response was simple. "Yet." Richard snorted, some of his old attitude creeping back. "You really think you'll be the first?" "I don't think about being the first," she replied. "I just think about being the best pilot I can be." The conversation died as they crested a ridge. Below stretched a narrow canyon, its walls offering blessed shade. As they descended, Richards lost his footing on loose gravel, pitching toward a 20-foot drop. Ava moved with shocking speed, her hand shooting out to grab his belt, arresting his fall with a strength that belied her slender frame. For a moment, he dangled over the edge, held by her single-handed grip. With a grunt, she hauled him back to solid ground. They sat, breathing hard from the near disaster. "How the hell did you do that?" Richards asked, staring at her with new eyes. "You're half my size." Ava shrugged. "Adrenaline." But it wasn't just adrenaline. Richards had felt something mechanical, precise, in her grip, a power that didn't match her physique. Before he could press further, the whop-whop-whop of helicopter blades echoed through the canyon. A Black Hawk appeared over the ridge, not part of the exercise. It touched down 50 yards away, kicking up dust. Sergeant Miller slid open the door. "Morales, get over here, now." Ava and Richards exchanged confused glances. "What about the mission?" she called. "Aborted. Special orders from command." Richards stared. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Ava said, but uncertainty flickered across her face. "Maybe they found out about," she stopped herself. "Found out about what?" Richards pressed. Ava was already moving toward the helicopter. "Complete the mission," she called over her shoulder. "Follow the canyon east. It leads to the rendezvous." As she climbed aboard, Miller's expression was unreadable. The door slid shut, and the Black Hawk lifted off, leaving Richards alone in a cloud of dust, staring after her with confusion and the first stirrings of respect. Inside the helicopter, Ava strapped in across from Miller. "Sir, what's happening?" For the first time since she'd arrived at Nellis, the sergeant looked uncomfortable. "General Dawson's here for inspection," he said. "He's asking for you specifically." Ava's face drained of color. "General Dawson?" She turned to the window, her reflection in the glass revealing eyes wide with something close to fear. Dawson wasn't just any officer. He was a legend, a man known for sniffing out secrets, and Ava had secrets buried deeper than most. The Black Hawk landed near the base's command center, a squat concrete building bristling with antennas. Ava followed Miller inside, her boots echoing on the polished floor. General Dawson waited in a conference room, his silver hair catching the light, his gaze sharp enough to cut through lies. "Cadet Morales," he said, voice low and measured. "Sit." The room cleared, leaving them alone. "Your performance is extraordinary," he began, folding his hands. "Too extraordinary. That Pugachev's Cobra isn't taught to rookies. So, I'll ask once, where did you learn it?" Ava's heart pounded, but she'd prepared for this. "Sir, my father was a crop duster in California. I learned to fly young." Dawson leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Don't play games, Morales. I've seen your file. No crop duster's daughter flies like that." She held his gaze, unflinching. "It's the truth, sir." He stood, pacing the room. "There's a rumor, a classified one. A covert program years ago trained pilots for high-risk missions. Pilots who didn't exist on paper. I think you're one of them." Ava's face stayed neutral, but her mind raced. Dawson was dangerously close to the truth. Her past wasn't just crop dusting. At 16, she'd been scouted by a shadowy group within the military, a rogue instructor who saw her raw talent during a local air show. Recruited into Project Shadowing, she trained in secret, flying missions in places like Pakistan and Syria, ops so deniable they were erased from records. When the program was shut down, she was released, her existence scrubbed, allowed to join the Air Force as a normal cadet. But Dawson's instincts were razor-sharp. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir," she said, her voice steady. He stopped pacing, his eyes boring into her. "We'll see. For now, you're back to training. But I'm digging, Morales. And I always find the truth." Back in training, Hayes doubled down, assigning Ava the toughest scenarios as if daring her to crack. "Let's see if that fluke holds," he sneered during a briefing. The next simulator session was a dogfight against 6 MiGs, a setup designed to overwhelm. Ava's team watched, expecting her to falter. Instead, she outmaneuvered every jet, weaving through virtual skies with tactics that left even Foster, the quiet cadet, slack-jawed. "How," he whispered as she landed a perfect score. Ava shrugged, her secret training giving her an edge she couldn't reveal. "Just practice," she lied. Richard's hostility began to soften after the desert incident. One evening, as they cleaned gear in the hangar, he approached her. "You saved my ass out there," he admitted, his voice low. "Why?" Ava looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Because we're a team, even if you don't see it." He frowned, conflicted, then nodded. "Fair enough." Foster, meanwhile, started shadowing her, asking pointed questions about her maneuvers. "You're not just a cadet, are you?" he said one night, his voice quiet but probing. Ava deflected with a smile. "Just someone who wants to fly." The next challenge was live flight training in T-38 trainers, a step below the F-22 but a thrill all the same. Ava's jet felt like an extension of her body, responding to her touch with precision. She pulled maneuvers that made instructors gasp, a high-angle climb, a tight barrel roll, a landing so smooth it was as if the plane kissed the tarmac. Hayes, watching from the tower, muttered, "She's too good." Richards, now less hostile, clapped her shoulder as she climbed out. "Nice flying, Morales." It was the first gesture of respect, tentative but real. Even Foster, usually silent, gave her a nod. "You're making us look bad," he said, a rare grin breaking through. But the scrutiny never let up. During a night navigation exercise, Ava was paired with Foster, tasked with flying a low-altitude route through simulated enemy territory. The T-38's cockpit glowed with instruments, the desert below a black void. Foster, in the back seat, was her navigator. "You trust me to call the shots?" he asked, half-joking. "Don't have a choice," Ava replied, but her tone was light. They nailed the route, dodging radar and hitting every checkpoint. Back on the ground, Foster looked at her differently. "You fly like you've done this before, real missions, not training." Ava's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Just good instincts." Week 3 brought a classified briefing that changed everything. Dawson summoned Ava to a secure room, his expression grim. "We found it," he said, tossing a file onto the table. "Project Shadowing. A covert program training prodigies for deniable ops. Your name's in here." Ava's stomach dropped, but she kept her face blank. "That's classified, sir." "Not to me," he snapped. "You flew missions at 18, Pakistan, Syria, places cadets don't go. Why hide it?" She took a deep breath, knowing the game was up. "Because it wasn't my choice, sir. I was a kid. They saw my talent at an air show and pulled me in. When the program ended, I wanted a real career, not a ghost's life." Dawson's expression softened, but only slightly. "You're the best pilot I've seen, Morales. But secrets don't fly here. You're grounded until we verify this." Ava's world tilted. Grounded? After everything? She left the room, her mind racing. That night, Richards found her alone in the hangar, staring at her T-38. Heard you're in trouble, he said, his tone cautious. What's the deal? She hesitated, then let out a partial truth. I flew before Nellis. Stuff I can't talk about. To her surprise, he nodded. My dad mentioned shadowing once. Said those pilots were legends. If that's you, Morales, I was wrong about you. It was the closest he'd come to an apology. The grounding lasted 3 days, each one agony for Ava. She sat in the barracks, replaying her past missions in moonless skies, dodging missiles, landing on makeshift strips in hostile territory. She'd been a kid, barely 18, thrown into a world of shadows. Her brother, a Marine pilot, had inspired her, but he'd gone missing in action years ago, his letters her only tether to him. She clutched his photo, vowing to keep going. On the 4th day, Dawson called her back. You're cleared, he said. But you're on a leash. One slip, you're out. Ava nodded, relief flooding her. Thank you, sir. The final test was a live F-22 mission, a mock strike against a heavily defended target. Ava was named team leader, a first, with Richards, Foster, and Thompson under her command. Hayes watched from the control tower, ready to pounce on any mistake. The mission was brutal, SAM sights, enemy jets, and a tight 10-minute window to hit the target. Ava's voice was steady over the comms, calling out threats, guiding her team through the chaos. Richards climbed to 20,000, cover my left. Foster, watch the radar. Thompson, stay tight. They followed her lead, trusting her instincts. She navigated a gauntlet of missiles, pulling maneuvers that pushed the F-22 to its limits, a high G turn to shake a MiG, a dive to thread through SAM coverage. They hit the target dead-on and returned unscathed. The debrief was tense. Hayes grudgingly said, passable. Dawson, standing at the back, disagreed. Outstanding. Morales, your lead pilot material. Richards shook her hand, his grip firm. You're the real deal. Foster smiled, a rare sight. Even Miller nodded, his approval unspoken but clear. The room felt different, less hostile, more like a team. The weeks that followed were a blur of advanced training. Ava faced night carrier landings, high-altitude intercepts, and mock dogfights that tested every ounce of her skill. She excelled, but the pressure never eased. Hayes remained cold, though his barbs grew less frequent. Richards, now an ally, trained alongside her, pushing himself to match her precision. Foster opened up, sharing stories of his own struggles, a shy kid from a small town, overlooked until he found his place in the cockpit. Thompson, still prickly, began to respect her, his jabs turning to grudging compliments. One evening, Ava found a letter slipped under her bunk. It was from her brother, forwarded by a Marine buddy who'd found it in his effects. Ava, it read, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But I know you're flying. Keep going. The sky doesn't care who you are, just how good you are. Make me proud. Tears stung her eyes, but she tucked the letter away, her resolve ironclad. The final weeks brought whispers of a special assignment. Dawson met with Ava privately. There's a new program, Elite, off the books. We need pilots like you. She hesitated, memories of shadowing flooding back. With respect, sir, I want to fly in the open. No more shadows. Dawson nodded, a rare smile breaking through. Fair enough, Morales. You've earned that. Graduation day dawned bright, the Nevada sun glinting off the F-22s lined up on the tarmac. Ava stood tall, her wings pinned to her chest, the top graduate of her class. Richards saluted her, a grin on his face. Knew you'd make it, Morales. Foster handed her a small patch, a stylized hawk, a nod to her brother's unit. He'd be proud, he said. Even Thompson clapped her shoulder. Not bad, Morales. Hayes, watching from a distance, gave a curt nod, his pride wounded but undeniable. As Ava walked away, she looked to the sky, clutching her brother's letter. She'd silenced the doubters, carved her place among the elite. But this was only the beginning. The Air Force had bigger missions waiting, and Ava Morales was ready to soar. What's next for Ava? Will she face new battles or conquer the skies? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe to Silent Stories for more epic tales. The sky's just the start, stay tuned for what's coming.